Good day, good evening, good night. Welcome to Schmoedown Night in Canada. I'm Daniel, and I'm joined with producer Dave to talk about some Schmoedown matches that went on this week. We got. Sorry, I was pulling out my notes.
I
we
no,
got.
Dan, you're doing a great job. This is just the
We got
most. This is great.
the most what? The quickest we've actually talked about Schmoedown on the show.
No, it's just the most like bullet points in introduction I've ever heard. I like it. It's very militaristic.
I mean,
Or,
I
I like it.
I was literally just thinking and speaking at the same time. That's the problem.
That's
You
tough to
shouldn't
do.
do that. Yeah, you should just not think and speak. Yeah.
Continue.
Yes, we've got first up, we've got Matt Atchity versus Mark Andreyko, and then we've got Tom versus Tim Franco.
It's weird the way the names line out. You pointed out it's M versus M and T versus T.
It's MA versus MA.
Oh my gosh. Do you think Christian scheduled this tournament alphabetically?
Possibly. No. I was actually gonna I was gonna make a pun earlier. I thought about it. I was gonna say this is one mother of a match, and then say like this is a pun. I'm not explaining any further, and then just go on. MAMA, mama. Yeah.
All right, let's get to the match.
Yes. Matt Atchity, usual suspects. Interesting 4 players they entered into the tournament just before we get into the match. You've got him, you've got Irwin, obviously. Then you've got Robert Montano and who's the last suspect?
Oh, it was Sabina.
Yes. Free agent signing or a draftee? I actually can't.
Both Robert and Sabina were picked up in free agency.
Okay, perfect. And so to actually not spoil the match too much, we should just get into it. First round doesn't go super great for Atchity, but you can tell he definitely has learned under Sam, whereas and actually you can tell because he's cracking jokes about it all throughout the first round and like adding letters to people's names and like spelling it correctly, showing it to the camera, but saying it in a fun way.
Yeah, I really think Matt Atchity clearly has and Christian has said as much, Matt Atchity has a love of the game, whether or not that always comes out in knowing the most about the game in the past. It hasn't, but it's always been the passion has been there. And under Sam, it definitely seems like he's learned a lot, and is now has a firmer grasp on the rules. Whereas someone like Mark Andreyko, though, student of the game, watched every Schmoedown match in quarantine. And what did he do in that first round?
Yeah, he goes perfect, hits the bonus, which he's want to do, but it very much was reminiscent of his first match for me because like even though he actually hits one extra question, because I think was it no bonus question or did they both miss it? I don't know.
No, that was back in the day when they had different sets of questions.
Bibbs and Draco was a long time ago. But yeah, just like the perfect round, and also just not having seen Mark play for so long, it was just refreshing to get to see him again. Especially in singles, which he doesn't play in often enough after, even though he's like got a pretty decent record. I find myself lacking Mark Andreyko in the Schmoedown quite often.
No, that's a great point. Mark Andreyko is someone who has been in here and been in there, dabbled in this, dabbled in that, but it was really this season where we were supposed to get all Andreyko all the time. With I think the Odd Couple would have played a couple more matches if not for COVID by this point, and I think Mark Andreyko was very motivated to get that singles belt when Ben Bateman had it, and now he just wants to beat Ben Bateman in singles. Now it's weird because they will not play this year.
Well, they can.
I guess.
Well, I mean, we'll get to the end of this match. Maybe Mark loses it.
This is a spoiler show, Dan. I don't know why you're dancing around it.
Oh, I like to build the lead a little bit. And also, even though we all know how it ends, perfect round for Mark. If I could find that again. Draco goes first, which is, I believe, a thing he always does, but I can't be sure.
Yeah, that's a thing he has always done, both in singles and with the Odd Couple. It's a thing he's picked up from Jeff Snyder's Patriots days, where they were always going first. Patriots always went first, Lions Den always went first, and now the Odd Couple always goes first. Lead
with pressure, right?
Yes.
He's been fantasy sci-fi, and if it was the physical wheel, I don't think it would have fully stopped bouncing between the two pegs before he was spinning it again. That's about how quickly he wanted to spin off.
Well, Mark Andreyko is a guy who has said he's watched every Schmoedown match. Again, he knows those fantasy sci-fi questions. You can get a question about Star Trek, and then you can get a question about Gulliver's Travels. You never know. Yeah.
And then, like, I believe there's 2 eerily similar Tom Cruise sci-fi movies, and I won't even attempt to name either of them because, goddamn.
You talking about Oblivion and the other one?
Maybe. Something like that. And yeah, so he spins again and gets spinner's choice. I actually cannot remember the wheel specifically, but he picks 80s off of it, which I thought was curious. What did you think?
He's always done very well in the older categories, like I say older, like, but like in the decades is what I meant to say. And he's no secret.
The 80s was 40 years ago now.
It was. And Mark is very open. He's one of the older, he's older than some of these other people competing. He actually remembers the 80s. So it makes sense for him to pick the 80s for himself. I think it's interesting to do it against a player like Matt Atchity, who also has shown proficiency in the 80s. But if it's something you feel comfortable with and you already have that nice 4-point lead, I think just put the pressure on. And he said it himself. It's like, even if he messes up, Matt's not going to be able to catch up.
See, that's what I thought was curious, was like against most competitors, against Chance or Paul Oyama especially, if you pick 80s on spinner's choice, because that's just a smart thing to do. But specifically with 80s, because it is such a big decade for movies, especially compared to the 90s or the 70s, which are just other broad decade categories. I think there are many 80s movies that people go back to, even people born several decades after the 80s are shown these movies generation after generation. And yeah, so I just thought, like, 80s was odd to pick against Matt Atchity when you could just, if you're 5 points ahead and you don't think he's going to catch up, why not just pick something more niche that you can snipe a couple of points and he won't get any steals?
Well, I think it's tough. I also think that this is probably a category that he wanted to take off the wheel for for Atchity.
Mm.
You have that lead, and the wheel. Say he picks. I don't remember who was on there. Say he picks horror or something like that. Something that him and Atchity similarly. Mark's very good in horror, but Atchity's a film critic. He's seen all those movies, and say Mark does exactly what he did in this round. He gets 3 points. Maybe Atchity gets another steal. Maybe, but then if say Atchity hits 80s, maybe Atchity runs the table on that on those 80s questions. So taking a strength off the board and leaving him with only a couple more things that he may be good at, I think is a good strategy.
That does make sense, especially if that's a slice your competitor puts on the wheel and you know you're confident in it. Always take it, because that leaves both of your slices still up for your opponent to spin. And if you're good enough to get those questions, but I mean, neither of them do particularly well in round 2. They both score 3 out of their 8 and both get a 1-point steal off each other. There were a number of different steals going back and forth. Yeah, and then we get to round 3, and this is where
I would like to, before you move on, Dan, this is something that you've actually said that you have issue with. Matt actually spins directors and decides to keep it.
Oh, yeah.
That was his category. His reasoning being, I think I can work my way through back downwards even on multiple choice. Not true in practice, as he does miss, but he does get a couple points there, as you said, 3 points. And then moving into round 3, we're looking at a 12-9 game.
I was pretty confident in what Matt was saying when he said that too. Like when he said he thought he was gonna be able to get some points, I was like, yeah, Matt actually is gonna run the table for directors. That makes tons of sense. But it wasn't quite the case this time.
No, directors is a weird category, though.
I do believe I have 13-9, not 12-9 going into round 3.
You're correct. I misspoke.
All right. Yeah. Atchity gets a dance question for his 2-pointer. He misses it. It's a 2001 dance movie that I can't remember. Then the 3 was so hard to watch when he gets a crime movie and he says on the broadcast, I can picture the movie poster.
Yeah.
And he misses it. What does he say?
I think he says stalkers.
And it's like shooters or whatever.
It's very close.
Yeah, and it's that was the most disappointing missed question in this whole match, just because everyone knew he's got it, but
I will say that is the moment where I thought to myself, wow, Matt actually really does have it. He has a love for this game. When you see someone on especially in the 3rd round, getting so frustrated that they can't pull that information from the back of their head to the front quickly.
Yeah.
I think that's where you see these are people who care about the game. And I think that was the first one where I actually believed what Christian was saying. It really made me not just a guy who likes Matt Atchity, but now I'm a Matt Atchity fan.
And I mean, we were saying right before the broadcast talking about it, and I actually just want to reiterate how I thought he just kind of got rattled in the 1st round when he missed that JTE on what seemed to be like a lag spike on his end. And it takes a passion for the game in order to even get rattled in the first place, because if you don't have that drive to win, the losses don't come as hard. And you see people who take their losses hard, Kevin Smets, Brendan Meyer, all of these characters, it shows how much more they care when they're basically broken up about missing a single question that they just should have had. And
Yeah.
you're very right. Which comes back to when he pulls the 5-point question very quickly. Like he had them, I believe he has them repeat the question for him just to make sure, or he might have used his repeats on the earlier ones. But
He used them on the earlier ones.
Yeah, and
he just answers it.
Who plays the youngest Ludlow child in Legends of the Fall? And like, I don't know, especially to pick, I can't remember the answer, so maybe the child actor grew up to be an actor. But yeah, like to just know off the top of your head like the name of a child, and like child actors are occasionally in 3 roles and then disappear and are never heard from again, so that is deep cut knowledge, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it comes down to that thing that John Roca, Ben Bateman, a lot of people have talked about in the past, where the 5-pointers often are not something they're either something you know or you don't. Not often can you just work your way back and figure out a 5-pointer. This was just something actually new. It could have easily been and based on Andreyko's face, he didn't know it. So it's just one of those things that the 5-pointers are tough because they're very difficult to work their way back of. And like you're saying, the child actor thing, if you don't know who that is, you don't remember that actor in that role, you're never going to pull it.
And never mind knowing the movie. Like, I guess technically that question is easier because it's IMDb studyable, right? If you train yourself to know every actor in every movie that you study through that method, then that is a piece of information you can pull without ever having seen the movie itself. But on the other hand, I haven't seen the movie, so you were just saying, like, name a child actor from a movie, and you didn't give me the year. So I was like, yeah, not even a chance.
Yeah, but you know what? We're talking a lot about Ashley when we should be talking about Mark Andreyko.
Yes.
Hits his 2-pointer and seals the game up right there.
Yeah. A dirty win is still a win, and both of these guys were clearly getting into the digital setting, and Sam mentions that a lot in the post interview as well, that the situation works better for some people than it does for others. I mentioned it the last time I was on the show about over comfortability being a problem with some people, in my estimation.
No, I think that's definitely a thing. And I think we're going to very quickly see in this tournament, the people say home field advantage thing. I think digital experience will be a serious, it'll be a serious factor in who wins. It's just, I would not be surprised if someone like a Lon Harris or the Kid or a Kalinowski or someone like that who's gotten a lot of reps in this digital era is able to run the tournament all the way through.
See, I disagree with that, just on the basis of I don't think it takes more than one to get acclimated to it, especially like a person who's well-versed in the Schmoedown. Once they've played a digital match, the second one should be fine. It's tough for these couple of people who have had to do their first one, lost, and now don't get to play in the big playoff tournament.
Yeah, and like I don't want to spend too much time on this because we do have another fantastic match to cover in just a second. But I would disagree because I think there's so many different factors like we've experienced here, and I think every podcast can attest to this. The difference are some days you're like 5 seconds behind me and I'm waiting for you to respond just because the internet's bad. And some days like today, it's perfect. And so there's more variables, I think, in this online space that can trip you up.
Well, our variable is called soda, and we've isolated the variable.
It's true. That's why D&D are on another show together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, there was one thing I wanted to mention. They move on to play Brendan Meyer in the second round, which is a tough opponent to ask anybody to play, but gonna be a great match to see Mark Andreyko really test his singles mettle.
Yeah, I think this will be a great match. Personally, I think the kid is going to go further. You can also tell that this was filmed probably before Shazam got to start playing in the digital sphere, definitely before their match against Who's the Boss, because Roxy, who we haven't talked about at all, but I loved her fire this whole match. Saying, once you get in the kid's head, he just can't hang. I'm like, she has not seen Who's the Boss v Shazam yet.
Also, like, the only person in the kid's head is the kid now, but I'm not sure that's a good thing. And maybe Lon Harris to a degree.
Who knows who's in whose head?
But yeah, a lot of people in the previous tournaments were always talking about those matchups of like, oh, if he can win, he's gonna take the rest of the tournament, or they're gonna take the rest of the tournament. And I think that could be a case for Andreyko here. Like, this is his test of tests in this tournament.
No, I agree, and we can never count out Andreyko. Let's not forget the 2018 tournament. It was him in the final, and he beat Ethan Irwin. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, he's beaten Irwin, and I mean, Who's the Boss not Who's the Boss, Odd Couple have been teams champions. He's a champ, and he can definitely do it just as easily in this division as he does in his teams. But yes, let's get into Tom versus Tim. The Den versus the Quirky Mercs, who I believe are both tied in the standings at the moment. That could be off by a match or two, to be honest.
I believe the Quirky Mercs before this match were ahead.
Okay. So there's an opportunity for the Den to come back and push them into a tie.
Yeah, this was a match I was very excited for, and you can see that in our preview special that we did a little while ago. My hands are I'm trying to attack the screen. Because Tim Franco is someone who I've wanted to see back in singles. He only has that one game against Matt Atchity like 3 seasons ago. It was when Team Action was still a thing. And Tom, this is his debut in singles after a historic run in teams last year. So there was a lot of potential to see how this was going to go. And also, I was very curious, will the Tom shtick, will that work digitally? The answer, it does.
The answer is it very much does.
It very much does.
Tom came to us from someone's bedroom, but he could not divulge whose bedroom it was or if there were people in it, which gets me a little worried.
Was he in the same house that Lon Harris was crashing at a couple of weeks ago?
I don't think so.
Is Taco just housing all these Schmoedown ruffians?
No, I think Tom is either in Video Drew's house, or he is, I don't know, maybe breaking into Christians like they suggested.
Yeah. And just quickly before we get into the actual match itself, I love Tom's use of hands on screen where he had the smiley faces with the X's on his hands. Because and if I had a little more time, I was going to draw those, but I just came from something else, as you can see. I was a big fan of that, and I was a big fan of his gameplay.
Yeah. Okay, so I just looked it up quickly, and before this match, the Den and the Mercs were tied at 17. And that was post throwdown. Yes. And yeah, so this match was gonna pull them out of that little like quad of factions that are in that middle tier, right? And I was very interested in both of these guys because they're supposed to be these like round one phenomenons, and we saw it in Tom and less from Tim, but we've seen him in a couple of teams matches, and he does do insanely well in the first round as he was touted to do.
Yeah, Tim got one of the first ever perfect rounds with the bonus when he came in and played Mad Atchity. He had several first rounds in Crimson Fury, his team last year. A team who similar to Loose Cannons. I wish we had gotten to see more of, but the past is the past.
And spoiler alert, neither of these guys got perfect rounds.
Neither of them do. But very interesting. We might as well just jump into it. It's not a matter of what we usually see where neither guy goes perfect, but they miss different things, and you can see kind of where they are better than each other. They go tit for tat, hitting the same questions, missing the same questions over and over and over.
There was the one question, they both answered the same Transformers question, like same answer for it, and get it wrong by a year, I believe. But
yeah,
that's nominal. The other one where they did answer different answers but both got it wrong was the one that really surprised me. And I guess they were all working actors from around that time, so it made sense to pick one of those three guys if you were throwing a random guess. But it was great that they both missed the exact same two questions.
It was, because it really set the stage for an exciting round 2 and 3, which was exactly what we got.
Yeah. See, I have in my notes in full like air quotes, this is a slow scoring round for these guys. Because, they should have 9 points, and yet we're at 6-6.
Yeah, you know what? But I will say that 6 points is nothing to hang your head about in singles play. I think that's
I think it's actually better here. In this instance, 9 points is easier to fall away from. If you don't get a good round 2, the guy starts pulling ahead by up to 7, can be up to 17, right? If it's better that they both score low than one of them score high and the other score low.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think that's why we were set up. So
for such a nice match going forward, actually.
It really was. And Tom is going to go first, and he's going to get Julia Roberts, an interesting category for him.
Spins away from Bond, because as we see later, Tim Franco put it on the wheel, and obviously he did. Is he? Ooh, I don't want to say he's the Bond champion, because I don't know if there's been an exhibition to determine that yet.
There has been a Bond exhibition match. No spoilers.
Yes. All right. Well, get on the Patreon. And, well, I was actually talking about a couple of years ago, because he does comment on any Bond, and any post that points out that Kalinowski's good in Bond has a Tim Franco comment saying, there's another person just as good in Bond. And he lands on Julia Roberts and goes 6 of 8. Doesn't go multiple choice at all, which I think he just thought he knew that second question, and
Well,
you didn't have the answer.
I think you're right. I think he thought he had it. It's hard to tell with Tom because you don't get much in terms of, oh, I knew that, or oh man. But even so, Tim isn't able to capitalize on that potential 2-point steal. So a solid round two here.
Yeah, and then as we teased there, Tim spins a fun slice that I need more slices like this that have like more words than you could fit on even the big physical like dump truck wheel slices.
Yeah, it was like historical epics and dramas or something.
Yeah, historical epics / dramas. That's a great category. I mean, it actually is a great category because for a person who is a history buff, those movies are your bread and butter. You have seen so many of them that this is your wheel slice, right?
No, it is a great category, and I'm happy to see it. I'm very upset that people keep landing on these like courtroom legal thrillers and this, but then spinning away because I'm just like, what counts? Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, what's in there? What's in the box? Okay.
What if Patro's head? But Tim Franco,
and he spins away from that, and he gets a nice spinner's choice.
Yeah, and he obviously takes Bond, and he's gonna go 4 for 4. He only goes to multiple choice once, giving him the lead, which is exciting.
Yeah, 13-12, and spoilers for the end here. I think that's his doom. Is you had 13 points, and you're facing Tom, and you shouldn't have that number of points.
No, I agree with you. I also think Tim just got. I think he has talked about this on other shows in the past where he is very much a guy who is going to study, but he really wants to make sure the things he knows 1,000%, and the things he doesn't know, he's going to hope that they don't come up. So it's not surprising to see what he got and what he didn't get.
Yeah.
But I think it's very indicative of the way he's talked in the past.
Although for someone who studies, I'd think you'd try and get that 2-pointer, especially that he misses on, because it's such a recent movie that even if you were working backwards in your Oscars study, this should be a flashcard you have by now.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a weird thing because I said the same thing. I was like, oh, it's Ethan Hawke probably, because that's
you answer someone in the movie, so
you answer the most famous person or the most acclaimed actor in the movie, and you're like, oh, because I couldn't remember who else was even in the movie.
I thought it was not gonna be him. Like,
I thought
just the way it was phrased, the only person to get one for Boyhood, and I was just like, okay, so it won't be the main, because if the main wins an award, the movie wins more awards.
See, I thought because it's a 2-pointer, Ethan Hawke. If it was a 3 or a 5, I'd be like, no. But anyway,
yes, we can move on from the 2-point question.
We can move on from Ethan Hawke, the wrong answer.
He gets his 3 and his 5. Yeah?
Yeah. No, he does not hit his 5. He just hits his 3, which was very exciting exciting for me, because I had the moment of, I just heard Meryl Streep Amy Adams, and I was like, didn't even listen to the rest of the question. I was like, oh, it's Julie and Julia. And then he says the answer, and I'm like, oh, he missed it. And then they say it's the right answer. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yes, Tom gets a Tom Hanks question. That was very great.
That's my name.
No, you're Dave. you're Dave, right?
Yeah, I am
Okay.
Dave. I am Dave.
Okay. So Tom, yes, Tim misses his 5. Tom was in the lead at that point. He got his 2 and his 3. And Tom wins 17-15. A very close match throughout the whole thing.
Very close. We learned that Kate Mulligan was in The Lincoln Lawyer. I didn't know that.
We did, yeah. I mean, I definitely didn't know that. Which is why I definitely don't compete in singles trivia for sure.
But this was an exciting match, and I love the potential that both of these guys showed. Even though we're not going to see, maybe we won't see Tim for the rest of the year because we're not sure what team is going to be in the team's tournament. He could be on it. But Tom, I'm very excited to see him compete again because I actually had this match going the other way. But Tom, now I'm back on the Tom train.
Yeah. See, way back when we were talking about competitors in this tournament, I thought that maybe Tom would be one of the first round upsets that was going to happen, and that everyone had such faith in him that I was afraid it was not necessarily unfounded, because every competitor in this tournament is capable of winning, except I just thought that the pressure would be a lot for a person playing their first match on their own, right?
Yeah.
Turns out it was Paul Preston from that faction that we needed to worry about, and that was quite a match. But we can wrap up with Tom goes on to face Jader the Hurricane Paramo in round 2.
How are they going to get the Hurricane in the room?
I don't know. How do you put a hurricane in a room? Freeze it first. No? Wait, what?
Freeze it first. Freeze the hurricane. Freeze the hurricane first. Yes, that's correct.
Can we bomb the hurricane?
Sorry, I think we just all stand on the shore and just shoot guns at it. Not Jader. We're talking about the actual storm. I want to make that clear.
Yes. I suggest fireworks instead of guns. They actually have like an igniting after the initial.
I like that. Okay, good.
We're gonna heat up the hurricane so all the water vapor like disperses away.
I love it. All right, so very quickly because we're starting to wrap up here. Tom or Jader, and then we can do Tom or Jader.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to give the edge to Tom because he's excellent at answering movie trivia questions, and he knows an insane amount about movies. That he's the clear favorite, and coming out of this match, I don't think he has those online jitters anymore.
I think it's really all going to come down to, I think I said almost this exact thing last week, where I think it's going to come down to that round 2 category, because I think Tom on paper is a better player than Jader. I think Tom has a wider breadth of knowledge, but I think if Jader, I don't think we've seen his full potential yet. I don't think he's gotten a category that he's been happy with in round 2 yet. So I think if he can hit a strength, whatever that might be, because we're still waiting to see him really knock something out of the park, I think Jader can take this, because I would expect Tom this to be his score every time. I don't think I think Tom might do a little bit better in round 1. I would not expect Tom of the loony bin, just because he hasn't been getting those reps in. But I think it's really going to come down to that round 2 category.
Yeah, and it really depends on it's I won't even say it's Tom's game to lose. It's more Jader's game to win.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, because Tom doesn't need to play poorly. Jader just needs to play well.
Mhm.
And any competitor can put their A game forward. And when you're not practicing your A game, you're practicing losing. So basically, you just need to go into every match practicing as much of your A game as possible, and just make sure that like you can't unanswer your opponent's questions for them. You can't take the knowledge away from them. So you just make sure your knowledge is up to par.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way of saying that. Do you have anything else to talk about the match?
No, I think that was about it. That is the Den going up another 3 points. They go to 20, and the Rock Stars move to 18. So, we have a new 4th and 5th place.
Yeah, I really think
They both jumped that 17 club in the mid card.
Yeah, I think it's going to be it's going to be a tall task for either the Rockstars or the Den to climb up to catch Corruption Swag or the Exchange.
There is one last thing to talk about.
Okay.
Usual Suspects. Two players left in the tournament, and they're in dead last with 9 points.
I don't think that's really something we need to put a lot of time into because I think that if anyone, you look at the Suspects who they put in, and I think this is kind of exactly what we saw happening. I think everyone was like, Lon's going to beat Sabina, Draco's going to beat Atchity, Ethan's going to run through the tournament, get to
Oddly, I actually had Sabina beating Lon because I was going through my bracket and I was looking to put one upset in the first round, and I could not figure out which of a couple of different matches, and that was the one I picked, and well, bracket busted immediately.
Bracket busted.
Stacy.
Yeah. I think it's gonna, it's not looking great for the Suspects, and I don't know that they can crawl to first on the back of Ethan Irwin.
Also, they're on the same side, the remaining guys.
Yeah.
I think Montano gets Jeff Snyder.
Yeah. Montano's in that killer bracket at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then Irwin's at the top. But I really don't think on the back of Ethan Irwin and Robert, they can they can make their way to first place. Based on the math, I don't think the points are on the table.
No. And obviously, what they need is the Corruption, Swag, and the Finstock Exchange to drop their players out. And then there's a teams tournament with a small number of points, and then those random matches that happen between now and December. There's not much ground to make up, and they don't have a first round pick. It's not looking like a great season for the Usual Suspects.
It is not looking great for the Usual Suspects. And
on the heck, can trade frozen slots. That's my last thought for this episode.
And on that dour down thought, Dan, where can people find you online?
Mostly just around our Facebook page at Schmoes of the North, a Schmoedown fan page, and I'm around on Twitter just commenting on most of our videos, every Schmoedown thing I see, kind of. But yeah,
and you can find find me. Also, just subscribe to Schmoes in the North. I forgot to do the
I
plug
was
at the
gonna do
beginning.
that.
Subscribe to Schmoes in the North. I didn't do the plug. Dan didn't do the plug. I'm sorry. We're letting the people down. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go join our Facebook group. It's a lovely community full of like-minded and amazing people. Just some really positive stuff happening over there. And you know what? Don't bother following me anywhere else. It's fine. But from all of us here,
your handle could not be more specific, right? You ask them to leave you alone.
I know. Leaves me alone. All right.
I'm sorry I made you do it.
It's all right. From all of us here at Schmoes in the North, have a good night.
Good night.